And what I want to do is make sure that you're familiar with how the path has evolved. So AX as a product, you will no doubt know, Enterprise Resource Planning, and AX Online, a relatively recent launch. And as a set of online functionality, it was licensed with subscription licenses. Now, we're going to talk about the difference between device and user subscription licenses, but essentially AX Online had a set of subscription licenses that allowed users to access the functionality depending on what they wanted to do. So if you imagine that grey thing there is the whole functionality of AX Online, and then when we were recommending to customers what licenses they purchased, it was about what they wanted to do. And those of you who have done this, you'll know the licensing guides are invaluable when you're doing this, because you have to recommend the right license depending on the particular functionality, the particular tasks the users need to do. And it's big tables in those licensing guides that can help you recommend the right license. So here, AX Online, a set of enterprise resource planning functionality, and there were 4 subscription licenses to give users the access that they needed. Then we had CRM, one of the best named products perhaps, Customer Relationship Management Online. So a separate set of functionality, and again you could consider the CRM Online functionality, and then a whole host of licenses to access parts of that. So they went from low to high. You can see as a user, if I just needed to access very light functionality, I would use the employee self-service subscription license all the way up to an enterprise one. Now that was reasonably straightforward. However, you will probably know CRM Online had lots of friends, and this was mainly, not entirely, but mainly by acquisition, and there were lots and lots of separate things. So we had, they're quite long names, so I've used abbreviations here: social engagement, Dynamics Marketing, Parature, Project Service Automation, Field Service, the Service Hub, the Service Desk. These products were all available, but they were licensed in quite strange ways. Some of them you had to buy a particular license for. Some of them were included in those purple licenses at the right. Some of them were cloud services. Some of them you installed locally. So CRM Online, a really very powerful set of functionality, but quite difficult to license. And I can just see here, one of you's asking about self-serve. That's just a name of a license, and it was just a name given to the very basic license. That has gone, so if you've not heard of that, you don't need to worry. So what we've got are 2 products that we had that were licensed with subscription licenses. Let's have a look at how that's changed today. So now we're into Dynamics 365. So Dynamics 365 is an evolution of AX Online and CRM Online. And I'm focusing today here about the enterprise licenses. There are some smaller licenses available, but they're not worldwide yet, and there's plenty to talk about on the enterprise license here. So we need to know, how does the AX Online and the CRM Online functionality map into this Dynamics 365? Well, we have apps, and in particular we have 4 apps you'll see here in a mid-color green. The greens are important here. These 4 apps relate to the CRM Online functionality. So you know, I've just shown you we had CRM Online with some subscription licenses and then all the other surrounding bits. Now it's simpler. We just have 4 apps, and everything that we've seen has been mapped into these 4 apps. So really easy. You've got a salesperson you want to license, you license them for the sales app. And at the moment I'm going to talk about user subscription licenses. There are some device licenses which we'll come to, but and there's user licenses for everything. So if you have existing CRM Online customers, then they will move to one of these apps. If you have brand new customers, then what they will do is choose their area of expertise. So are they a customer service agent? Then they would have a user subscription license for that app. So those are the 4 apps. very nice and streamlined, isn't it? That on my previous diagram, that right-hand side has been streamlined into these 4 apps. On the left-hand side of my previous diagram was the AX Online, and that's been streamlined as well. There's now an app called Operations, which maps to AX Online. So what you're seeing here is the similar set of functionality. Obviously, it's new and improved, a similar set of functionality, but the way you access it is changed. And if you're an expert, a specialist in any of these areas, the licensing is easy. I buy a user subscription license for any one of these things here. Now, there is another app that you need to know about. It's the Power Apps app. Now, I'm going to put that there as something. We'll talk more in detail about this. So at the moment, if you've never heard of Power Apps, don't be thinking, oh my goodness, I don't know what this is. We'll talk about this in detail later, but I need it on my diagram for the moment. So we're being asked here, where is marketing? It's a very good question. Now, I've got a slide that says, where has everything gone? Marketing, though, let's talk about. It's a good question to answer here. Marketing, the recommendation now is that you use Adobe Marketing Cloud. So we could have on the end here another box, which is a set of functionality from Adobe, which works with all of these apps. So we'll come back to that, but well spotted there that has gone on there. Okay, just checking there are no more questions for me on there. So we know this is quite straightforward. I want any one of these things, then great, I license the app. But what about those people who need to do a little bit of everything, but they don't do anything very complicated? They need to look at things. They need to do what we would call quite light tasks. If I need to do something in each of these apps, do I need to license all of them? Oh, that's sounding expensive, and we haven't even talked about pricing yet. Well, no, because there's a new thing, technical term there, a new thing called Team Members. And this is a user subscription license. And can you see the way I've put it on the screen here, lining up with all of the apps? Because a team members person, so somebody who has a user subscription license for team members, has light access. And again, if you need to know exactly what it is, you need to refer to the licensing guides. But they have light access to all of these apps. So now we're thinking, okay, am I licensing somebody who is a specialist? Then I would license them for one of the darker green apps on there. Or am I licensing somebody, perhaps they're a support person, perhaps they do something completely different in the business, but they need to access basic information in all of these apps. That's the team members plan. Now, you can see here, there are some other things to know. I've said you license for the apps or for team members. However, can you see the bullets that are appearing on here that we've said Plan 1 apps and operations licenses? Now, the Plan 1 apps, it's a name for the CRM apps. So can you see here, sales to project service automation? You'll see those referred to as the Plan 1 apps and the operations license. They include team members' rights. So imagine you're an expert or a specialist in sales, but you need basic access to one of these other apps. Well, actually, Team Members is included in sales, so I get everything to do with sales, but I can then have basic access to all of the other apps. And I do get limited create and run rights for Power Apps, and we've got Flow in here as well. And again, I'd like you to, any questions you've got on that, we'll come back to that. But the point here, if I'm a specialist, I license for an app. However, I do get Team Members included, which is useful. There are other things included. I don't know if how much you know about Office 365, but you know there is more and more being added to the licenses at the moment, and that this is true here as well. So all Plan 1 apps, remember these are the Plan 1 apps, the ones that relate to CRM Online. All the Plan 1 apps and the Team Members license, this one here, include rights to Project Online Essentials. So things are really coming together, and that's worth about $7. So that's a good thing to have included in there. And then, final thing for the moment, project service automation licenses. So this app here includes rights to Project Online Premium, and this is when you're really getting into your project management. You've got rights and access to the full set of tools. So far we know there are apps, we know there's team members, and we know that all of these apps include access to team members as well. But that's not all. Oh no. What about if you want to buy more than one app? Well, if you want to buy more than one app, then we have plans. And can you see Plan 1? That, quite cleverly named there. Plan 1 is available covering those apps there. So Project Viewer, yes, the Project Viewer will still be free. This is to do even more. So looking you can do, but if you want to do input, then you get rights to do that on here. So Plan 1 is a collection of these apps here. So now can you see why these are called the Plan 1 apps? Because they're part of Plan 1. So who needs Plan 1? Plan 1 is for people who do quite a bit of sales, all reasonable amount of field service, a bit of this, a bit of that. It's when you need more of another app than you would get from the team members, and the usual rules apply here. So if you've got a customer who has users who need access to 2 apps, a plan's going to be a better bet, of course. Now, what do you think? There's another plan. What do you think it could possibly be called? If the first plan is called Plan 1, any ideas as to what the next one is called? I'm sure you're all thinking this. Of course, Plan 2. And Plan 2 is everything. Yes, there we go. We had some suggestions there. Plan 2 is everything in Plan 1 and operations. So again, this is the ultimate in sophisticated user, isn't it? It's somebody who needs to use everything and operations. And again, we know the apps give access to team members, so it does follow that if you have Plan 1 or Plan 2, you do get this team member access as well. Now, as we go through, what I'd like you to do is, I can talk at you, and that's all fine, but you know what it's like. You go back to your desk and you start thinking, and questions occur that you wish you'd asked or you can't remember if we covered. So what I've done throughout our session today is I've tried to predict what you might be thinking. And the first one is this. Here's a thoughtful lady. Can you mix and match different license types through an organization? So she's saying, oh, could I have some people on plans and some people just on apps and some people just on team members? And I guess if I was to, if we were all sitting in a room together and I was to say to you, what do you reckon? I bet some of you will be saying, you must be able to. You don't know, but surely you can. And of course you can. And that's one of the benefits, the fact that we have these different license types for different types of people. And this time it's done by role, of course. Then yes, absolutely, you can mix and match them. And we're going to look at an example of that in a moment. But let's go to pricing. Let's have a look at the pricing of this. And if we start here with the individual apps, they're $95 each. And the license prices are user licensing and they're per month pricing. So the user licensing, and these are US dollars, if you were wondering. Then we've got operations, $190, and power apps, again coming back to that, but if you were to buy that as a standalone thing, then that would be $40. Team members, $10, and then the Plan 1, $115, and the Plan 2, $210. So we're starting to see here, you can see, doing some very simple maths here. And the question is it per user per month? It is per user per month. If you've got customers who want 2 apps, then of course Plan 1 is going to be a good bet. If you've got users who want 1 app and operations, then you can see that you're starting to think about the Plan 2 is possibly going to be the one for them. But team members, good value, $10 per user per month, meaning that we can give access to things to a lot of people. Now, let's do a recap. So questions coming about what's covered under Power Apps. Power Apps, I sometimes say we know nothing about that yet, and I don't mean, I don't know anything about it. What I mean is, for the purposes of this presentation, let's assume we haven't covered Power Apps yet. So I have got that coming up, so you haven't missed that. But what I'd like you to do, actually, what I didn't say, I've uploaded a copy of this deck to the, the little button with the screen on it, so you can download this. What I'd like you to do, you could download that now, but we're going to do a bit of an exercise to make sure that you're really happy how these plans and apps, these user subscription licenses actually work. Are you ready? Let's take a company called Cyaniders Pharmacy. Now, I have somebody who works for me who makes up these company names for me. I'd like to say that's not his full-time job if you were thinking of applying, but it's down to him. We have all these names. So have a look at this, and I would like you to be typing into the window, okay, with your thoughts. So in a controlled way. Are we ready? Let's read together. Cyaniders Pharmacy have a number of users they would like to license for Dynamics 365. So this is your ideal customer. They've come to you and said, oh, we need some Dynamics 365 licenses. What would you recommend? So let's have a look. Jessica at the top there, she needs to be able to see purchase orders to answer queries. Now that doesn't sound like a very big job. What do you reckon? What would you recommend for Jessica? She needs to be able to see purchase orders to answer queries. Any offers? Remember, you're thinking about an app, you're thinking about a plan, or you're thinking about team members. Okay, we have a brave first person here, Mohab, team member is actually the right answer. Oh my goodness, and then there was a flurry. Indeed, and we'll get people starting to do abbreviations here to be the first. So we'll accept that TM is team member, that's fine. We've got some agreement with team member. Indeed, and think about this. When you're hearing the words, I need to be able to look at, I need to be able to see, I need to be able to access something just to answer queries, it's a sort of a looky, no touchy, then that's definitely team members. I'm not saying you can't add data under the team members USL, but when you hear the words, oh, I need to look at things, I need to access things, that's definitely team member. Okay, good. I suspect you've been looking ahead at Bill now. So Bill is a full-time customer service agent. Now that's all he does. He works in the customer service department, and that's the role he has. What license would you recommend for him? I see we've gone to the abbreviations here. Okay, so we've got some plan ones. Goodness me, lots of plan ones. We've got some sales. We've got customer service. Service app, customer service. Let me go back to the choice that we've got, just so that we can see that. Can you see here, and I've been very deliberate with the words, I realise it's not that easy in real life. I said Bill's a customer service agent. What I was expecting you to choose was this app on here. However, some of you are saying plan one, and plan one isn't wrong because customer service is included in that. And plan one, if you're a salesperson, you're making money from licenses, selling a higher license is a good thing. But it's about asking questions. Does Bill really just need access to that and then the team members access to everything else? In which case that would be the good answer. However, if he does do active work in the other apps, then plan one is a better answer. So I'll accept customer service or plan one for that. Very good. Let us continue. Arthur, are we ready? Arthur, he works mainly in sales, but he carries out some complex field service tasks too. So Arthur works mainly in sales, but does use other apps. We're getting very quick on this plan. Some people are so, oh my goodness. I don't know if anyone else, if you get a beep every time somebody types something, then yes, good. Okay, so very precise answers. Sales and field service is the right answer, absolutely. Remember, the way the pricing goes, many of you are saying, I like the P1, plan one. That's what I was expecting you to think here. When you've identified a user who absolutely works in two areas, and can you see, I've tried to guide you here, I've said complex field service, because bear in mind, mind, if it was really light, then he gets, in the sales app, he gets team members access, doesn't he? So that would give him the light access. So I use complex to drive you to that. So excellent work, everyone who's saying plan 1. Okay, Callum. He needs basic access, the very, very lightest access to operations functionality. So what does Callum need? He does really, really basic things. Okay, now, interesting answers here. I've said operations, and I was trying to lead you down the operations line and perhaps even plan 2. However, I can see lots of right answers saying team members. I didn't manage to confuse you. As soon as you're thinking basic access to anything, then you're thinking team members. So remember that team members gives you this basic access to all of these apps. So Callum uses operations, but it's just a tiny, tiny, tiny part of it. Team members was the answer, I think would be the right one on there. Very good. David. Now, David needs full access to operations functionality, but he needs to be able to see sales information. Okay, what are we getting on here? Okay, I'm loving your upsell on here. Okay, so plan 2, I'm saying, right, I'm seeing some operations. I'm seeing lots of plan 2s. I like the way people are using the names with this as well. I'm seeing operations. Okay, I've said full access to operations functionality. He definitely needs that dark green operations license. However, he needs to be able to see sales information. So let's go back to the diagram again. He needs definitely to be licensed for this, but he needs to be able to see that. And this is where you need to start asking questions. You know, okay, Mr. Customer, when you say see sales information, how much do you want him to be able to access this? Because remember, operations includes team members, which is all about seeing information. So if genuinely this is his place where he works, and then he just wants to dabble, to have a look at in that, actually just operations would be okay, because operations includes team members he can look at sales information. However, if you ask questions and the customer's described it as, oh, see information, but actually he needs to do some reasonably complex tasks, then those of you who are saying plan 2, absolutely. But if we were to take this at face value, and I know we shouldn't do this with customers because of the words they use, but if I was trying to say to you, oh, this is advanced functionality and this is extraordinarily basic functionality, then just the operations one would be fine on there. But plan 2, absolutely a good upsell there, and gives him flexibility. Now, I think some of you perhaps are moving on. Annette. Now, Annette is a power user, needs full access to operations and project service automation functionality. So what are we going to recommend for Annette? I'm seeing some answers coming in. Yeah, plan 2, P2, as it shall henceforth be called. Plan 2, I would agree with that. And again, look at the words I'm trying to guide you on here. Oh, lots of good answers from all over the place, as I now know. Full access to operations, oh, right, full access to project service automation. And again, going back to that diagram, as soon as I'm talking full access to these, I could license individual things, but it's probably going to be best to go for plan 2 on there. So well done. I'm going to pass you on that. Good work. Okay, let's continue. Oh, this lady is now thinking, oh, she's going, oh my goodness, are there step-ups available if users want to move from one of the apps to a plan? So if we think about some of the recommendations we've made, so if we made a recommendation for one of these apps, because the customer has said, oh yes, you know, Bill only uses this functionality, and then 3 weeks, 3 months, 3 years later, Bill changes job, then there are going to be step-ups that will allow you to move from a lower to a higher plan. Could be you've started with team members and you want to go to a higher plan. So, yeah, that worried lady, don't worry, lady, all is okay. There will be step-ups available. We're used to that. Just XRM. I don't understand what you mean by that question, so give me some more explanation on that and we'll answer that. Okay, let's talk about licenses. Now, we know they're subscription licenses, and I've said so far they're user subscription licenses. However, there are some device subscription licenses as well. Now, let's work out what's available and what you need to know. So, a user subscription license, I think we all know that's a license assigned to a named user. And these are available for all the apps, so those were the green things, and all the plans, so that's the team members and then those grey plans as well. And you would choose these when a user accesses the services using more than one device. So you would be buying a user subscription license, assigning it to a user, and then they can use any device to access the relevant service. Fine. Device SLs are available, but they're limited. Now, they are available for the customer service, the sales, and the field service apps. So the three of the green apps that we had in the middle of the screen are available as device subscription licenses, and what's important here is that they have the same functionality. So let me just go back to the diagram again. What we're saying, for these three apps here, I could choose to license them per user, or I could buy device subscription licenses. The device subscription licenses are more expensive, and you can imagine why, in the sense that when I have one device, lots and lots of users could access it, so I do pay a premium, $145, when it's a device license for these things here. But one of the important things is to know that the functionality is the same. It's your choice as a customer whether you license by user or by device. For these three apps associated with that, this is very similar. So just bear in mind, point one, device SLs are not available for everything. But with these three, they're more expensive, but you get the same functionality. For ops, it's limited functionality and it's cheaper. So let's have a look. I can see some questions here. So Irfan, you mean one device license can be used by multiple users? I do. When I license with a device license, it's assigned to the device, and then any user can use that device. I see you're answering each other's questions, which is excellent work. So the device license, is it $145 for each app? It is, so it is per app on there. That should say per app, should it not? So yes, per device, per app. No, we're all right, per device. Good. Okay, so yes, that I think answers the questions. Then the next thing that we may be just, the recommendation here, when would you choose a device SL? Well, as we've said, when multiple users are accessing the services using a shared device, and you can mix these. So from a customer perspective, it's all about making sure that the customer knows what's available, but knowing that they can mix these things if they want to. So as I say, the operations one, has been used from a point of sale device, a POS device, as we're saying, that sort of thing. It could be, if you've got devices that are shared by users, device SLs are much more attractive. Okay. So let's carry on with having a look at where things went. Now, this is a slide we had at the beginning, and we had lots of these things here. One of you asked about the marketing module, so let's talk about the other things on there. So a question on POS devices, do we still need store server? If you're using the yeah, I mean, it will depend on the deployment. So yes, ask me a more detailed question if you want to on there. So Mohammed is saying, can we have the difference between the operations user SL and the device SL? Really good question. And again, I'd refer you to the licensing guide. So that's exactly the sort of thing that is in the licensing guide, and that's why they are so useful. So download those. So this is where we came from. This is where we've come to, but this is what we used to have, and we've sort of talked about all these things. And I haven't seen licenses for Parature or the Unified Service Desk. What's happened to those? Well, let's have a look. Social engagement, so Microsoft Social Engagement is now functionality included in the Plan 1 apps. So if you think we had all this functionality, it had to be split up into the green apps, then the social engagement stuff, no longer a separate license, the functionality has been included in the Plan 1 apps. Hurrah! Dynamics marketing. Now, one of you did ask about this earlier. If you have MDM customers, they can use the product until the end of their subscription. From the 1st of November, there's no sales for new customers. And the recommendation going forward is to use Adobe Marketing Cloud. So you can consider that product to be sort of end of life, if you like. Adobe Marketing Cloud is the recommendation for that. So use it until the end of the subscription and then go over to Adobe Marketing Cloud. Can you use other marketing add-ons? So we'll talk about other apps and where you would go to check that they work in the the best way possible. You can use anything you want, of course. I suspect you're asking, will it work well? The nice thing about Adobe Marketing Cloud is the fact it has, it's been, like I say, authorized. It's been checked to make sure it works in the best possible way with Dynamics 365. It is available now. I don't know what the pricing is. Actually, the website, the Adobe Marketing Cloud website, is very good. So don't look at it now, obviously, because we're in the middle of a training session. But that would be a good thing to put on your homework list. So a bit later, we'll talk about the other apps and how you can recommend to your customers they check they work in the best possible way with Dynamics 365, because actually we're going to see that it's really important that things do work together, and you need to be able to recommend that. So more on that a little bit later. Other things, Parature, so no end of renewals defined for existing customers, but sales to new customers were stopped from the 1st of November. Now, Parature, really, if you've got customers interested in, Parature was sort of to do with customer service, you should recommend they go to the customer service plan, that app. So no new sales of new customers. If you've never been involved with Parature, then fine. No end of renewals defined, that could come, but if you've got customers interested in customer service where perhaps you would have talked to them about Parature before, that should now go to the customer service module. Question on SMB. Now, there will be a Dynamics 365 for SMB called a Business Edition, but this currently is only available in the US and Canada, so I haven't included anything on that. However, there are licensing guides and information available if you wanted to sort of, skill yourself up before more wider geographic availability. Is there a new marketing module that's expected for spring 2017? A well-read person here. I think what you're talking about is the Dynamics thing, slightly overused word here, that will work with the business apps for Dynamics 365. So it will be aimed at the smaller customer. What we're doing here is sort of looking at the 300 seats plus customer. Well, it can be any number of seats, but the business editions which will come will be limited to 300 seats. So this is actually for customers of any size, but the business editions for which there will be a new marketing module coming for the business editions. So what we're saying here is a larger customer who wants to do marketing, use Adobe Marketing Cloud. And Unified Service Desk, that's gone into the sales and customer service apps, and Interactive Service Hub, that's gone into the team members licenses. So what you're supposed to sort of look at that and think, oh goodness me, it was quite difficult. We had all these things, and what you need to think is all these things, so the 5 different USLs, all the different technologies, and I haven't even listed them all, they have gone into those 4 apps that we've talked about. So the sales, the customer service, the field service, and the project service automation. So a simplified model is what we're saying. So when will it be available in the Middle East? I haven't been given exact geographic dates. So 2017 is what we know. So keep posted. We will let you know, obviously. Okay, let's move on to something called tiered pricing. Now, if you read about tiered pricing, you would think that this was something completely new and revolutionary. Don't be, confused by this. Tiered pricing is, as perhaps you would expect, pricing with discounts available as the number of licenses increases. So if I buy 500 licenses, the price per license is going to be cheaper than if I buy 7 licenses, of course. Now, it's not available for every single license we've talked about. So here, the team members are available for tiered pricing, and the Plan 1 licenses, so SL subscription licenses. So again, if I go back to my diagram that we've been using, this one here, I get for team members and Plan 1 a discount the more licenses I buy. That's not true for the individual apps, and it's not true for Plan 2 either. So with this tiered pricing, we know it's about the more you buy, the cheaper it is, and it's available for just 2 things, which we'll look at an example. But team members, that long orange one, and Plan 1, so that's the plan that doesn't include operations. And it's available through the Enterprise Agreement, the MPSA, and CSP, so Cloud Solution Provider Program as well. We've got some more detail on programs as we go through. The rules are interesting but slightly bizarre. Okay, have a think about this. The total number of team members SLs generates the pricing tier for team members SLs. Now, I think that makes complete sense. If I want to know which tier I'm on for the team members, then what I would do is count up the team members licenses, and that puts me in the pricing tier. There's a question about the portal. Yes, the portal is included. Yeah, absolutely. The portal is built in. So that was a bubble I could have put in there. The portal is included. Yeah, good question. There's also Mustafa is saying the business plans thinks may also be available as a temporary SKU. So those of you who talk to your LSS, then you could ask about that, but also perhaps through CSP. So yeah, that would be worth checking out. So I think this first rule makes sense. However, look at this second rule. The total number of enterprise plans generates the pricing tier for Plan 1. Now, what is an enterprise plan? An enterprise plan is Plan 1 or Plan 2. So what this is saying is to work out what tier you are for Plan 1, you add up Plan 1 and Plan 2, and it's that total number that gives you the pricing tier. Now, I've got some examples on this, so never fear. These are the general rules. And what's interesting is each pricing tier is a different SKU. Now that means if you're going to be selling under CSP, you are going to see, Plan 1, Tier 1, Plan 1, Tier 2, etc. But think about it, those of you who work with customers who have an enterprise agreement, this lady is saying, oh my goodness, does that mean in an enterprise agreement there are different price levels and different tiers? There are, and those of you who do work with the EA, just be aware that you could be a level D EA customer and be on tier 2 pricing. For CSP, it's just different tiers, which is good. Right, really good question about minimum number of users rule. So very good. So there are some minimums to be aware of, and for buying everything but the ops or the Plan 2, there are no minimums. However, you've got a minimum of 10 users when you want to buy ops or Plan 2. So a good question there. But let's continue with tiered pricing. Are you ready? Team members to start with. So that's the long orange one there. And we want to know how this works. So let's have a look at what's available. So these are the tiers. There are 5 tiers. And can you see the numbers? So under 100, under 250, under 500, etc. And you can see, as you would expect, that we have 10 and 850, we have less numbers and less pricing as we go down. So the more I buy, the less I'm going to pay, which is good. So let's another couple of questions. Are there different prices on the plans and apps that have software assurance and no software assurance? We'll come to software assurance stuff on there. Plan 2, right, plan 2 minimum 20. I think I said 10, didn't I? 20, well spotted. So let's have a look at an example here. Cyanidus Pharmacy, they purchased 50 team members licenses on the 1st of January. Now let's be clear, do you have to purchase your licenses on the 1st of the month? No, but I'm making things easy here. So they pay 50. They are, what tier? Well, they're in the first tier, aren't they? Because 50 is clearly in this tier here. So they pay 50, $10, and then they're paying that for 12 months. Okay, that's because they're committed to this. Then a bit later, on the 1st of March, they buy another 65 team members licenses, and all of those 65, because now if I add them up, 115, I'm clearly in tier 2. So here I would be buying 65 licenses at the tier 2 price, and then for the 10 months remaining in the year. So that's how it works. And I think that is relatively straightforward, that you look at the number of licenses. What's perhaps unexpected is that as soon as you go into the next tier, all of that order is that at that lower price, which is good. Lovely. Let's have a look at Tangerine Truckers. Now, Tangerine Truckers want to buy 85 team members licenses on the 1st of January. Now, I'm actually going to work some things out on here. And what I'm going to say is, so on the 1st of January, let's say they're buying through, now I've done this for an enterprise agreement because you do pay up front in an enterprise agreement, but this equally applies to CSP, and I've done annual charges here. So with CSP, you're allowed to pay monthly. So I've actually done the annual prices here. And when you go to, right, so, okay, let's go back to Cyanidus Pharmacy because there's some interesting questions here. Cyanidus Pharmacy, so let's say I'm buying through CSP and I'm going to be buying these licenses. That's absolutely fine. When I come to renew, then obviously they're all going to be at $850. Yeah, absolutely. Very good. But there's something else I want you to know. 85 licenses, that's how much I'm going to cost to pay for the whole year. Okay, so it doesn't matter if it's up front or if I'm just paying. Have a look here. If I buy 25 licenses on the 1st of May, then I'm going to be paying 25 times, I'm in tier 2, so times the 850 times the 8 remaining months, that's the amount I pay for the year. So in total, I'm going to be paying $11,900 for the year. That makes sense. And then let's have a look at this. What about if you said to your customers, well, actually, let's think ahead. You want 110 licenses this year. Let's see what we can do. Have a look at this. If you had bought 110 team members licenses on the 1st of January, so they only wanted 85 there, then can you see you would have got that whole purchase at $8.50. And if we're paying for the whole year, can you see the cost is less? So what I would encourage you to do is to think about your customers' whole requirements, because it could be that getting into the tier 2 pricing earlier, which is what I've done on this example here, will save some money. So just bear that in mind, that if you're doing a very sort of piecemeal deployment, then it's absolutely fine. You buy the licenses here, you buy the licenses there. However, taking a longer term strategic view, it could be you can save customers some money by helping them. A little bit counterintuitive really, but helping them to at the beginning of the year or whenever, buy more licenses so that you're firmly in that tier 2. Let's have a look at another example. This is Plan 1 tiered pricing. So just on team members, let's have a look at Plan 1. Can you see here, we've been saying Plan 1 is $115. It is. For that number, it goes down to 90, 80, 70, 60. Again, these are approximate pricings, but you can see that there is some discounts as we go. So let's take an example. Goldfinger Food. They need 75 Plan 1 and 50 Plan 2 licenses on the 1st of January. Now, would you agree that that's a total of 125 enterprise plan licenses? So Plan 1 and Plan 2 are enterprise plans and they need 125 licenses. However, it's only Plan 1 that's eligible for tiered pricing. So what would happen is they would buy their Plan 2 licenses at standard pricing, so 50 at 210, but they get tiered pricing on the Plan 1. But do we do it on the 75 and it's tier 1, or do we do it on the 125 and it's tier 2? Well, actually, it's on this number here. So you would get tier 2 pricing here, and this is what I think is a little bit of an odd rule. You add up, so when an order is made, you add up the enterprise plan licenses, so Plan 1 and Plan 2, that gives you a number. That number is then what you use to find the tier for your Plan 1 licenses. Now, if you're not buying any Plan 1 licenses, if you're buying 125 Plan 2 licenses, then there's no tier pricing for that. But here, you might think you'd get tier 1 pricing because you're only buying 75, but here the tiers are worked out by the total number of enterprise plan licenses. So be aware of that because that's an unexpected rule, I think. Another example to be aware of, a papaya hire company, quite hard to say. Let's say they require the sales app licenses for 120 users. Now, the sales app does not have tiered pricing. So the only tiered pricing is for the long team members or for Plan 1. So here they need the sales app licenses for 120 users. Therefore, they just pay standard pricing. The price for the individual apps, $95. 120 times 95, lovely. However, because of how many they've bought, what about if they'd bought 120 Plan 1 licenses? Now remember, Plan 1 includes Sales App and the other apps. If they bought 120 Plan 1 licenses, we're in Tier 2. Oh, hello, this $90 is less than the $95. I'm going to save some money. So really important to work out the best thing for the customer. And I think it's obvious with Plan 1, when I need more than one app, definitely, of course, I sell Plan 1. But equally, if I buy more than 100, Plan 1, because of the tiered pricing, is going to be more cost effective than the individual apps. Now, if this is the first time that you've seen this, then I think it's probably good that you've got the numbers there to go away and have a look at. But you can see that there's some work to be done on there in the fact that there are, advantageous things that you can offer for customers. So, a good question here. If I want 50 sales and 65 Plan 1, you're going to need to work out the maths on there, whether it would be better to actually buy 115 Plan 1 because yes, I think that probably would be, wouldn't it? Because I get everything at $90 on there. Still Plan 1 is better. Yeah, good. I like the way it's like being in a real training room. You're having a little chat to each other while I'm talking. Yeah. So yes, good. Thank you for answering each other's questions. So question, planning to release field service, project service automation for on-prem customers. Haven't seen anything about that. So yeah, don't know anything on timelines or availability for that. Okay, let's continue on. So let's have a look at existing CRM and online and AX customers and see what's going to happen with them. Let's have a look at the functionality mapping, and with this functionality mapping, this is important for when we come to renewal, because what's going to happen if you've got existing customers on CRM Online, they can choose to stay with the CRM Online functionality, or they can choose to deploy the latest Dynamics 365 functionality. They can choose to do an upgrade for themselves. But it's when they come to the end of their subscription term, they can't renew the existing licenses. So these are some of the licenses that we had. And this is the sort of the, not the recommended, but the likely renewal that they're going to do. So if you've got customers licensed with CRM Online Enterprise, then it's likely if they want to, you know, they were enterprise users because they used a lot of stuff, then they're likely to want Plan 1 going forward. CRM Online Professional, the functionality there has been split here, that if you want to do the sales stuff, you would just renew for the sales app. If you wanted to do the customer service bit, you would just renew for that app. So CRM Online Professional, it could be that you'd bought that license as a customer because you wanted the sales functionality. You only have to renew that one app. You might want both apps, in which case that would be better to go to a plan, of course. So a couple of questions. I had a different experience quite recently. The customer got renewed with online, which is strange. There are always exceptions available, so I won't comment on that one, as I'm sure you can appreciate. Can customers subscribe for a period less than a year? That, May, is dependent on the program you buy through. So CSP being the most flexible of programs, you know, if you want to, absolutely you can do. Enterprise agreement, much more rigid in its 12 months. So Mohammed is saying, for CSP, I know that payment is done monthly. Are there other options to pay annually? The interesting thing about CSP is that it's an indirect program. In other words, there's a partner between the customer and Microsoft. And with CSP, the partner is invoiced monthly, and they probably want to pass that on to their customers. However, nothing at all with CSP to stop you saying to your customers, actually, it's 12 months in advance payment. You'll still get billed monthly, but you determine the conditions with your customers. It might be that you say, I'm going to wrap around all these services. I'm going to offer you a help desk. I'm going to offer you, extra apps. And I'm not going to charge you for those, but I am going to charge you up front for the Dynamics 365 licenses. So you actually, those of you who are partners, you choose as a CSP partner how you want to invoice your customer, but you are billed monthly by Microsoft. So plenty of flexibility on there. A couple of things, I think I'm coming back to basic. A couple of things on here are obvious, I think, essentials, employee self-service. So the very bottom licenses, you'd renew into team members. These ones speak for themselves. But CRM Online Basic, this is if you've got customers who have these licenses and they're going to renew into Dynamics 365, then it depends what they've been doing. If they've been doing lead management, they'll go to sales. If they've been doing case management, they'll go to customer service. If they've been doing other, quite basic tasks, they would go to team members. And this is all documented in the licensing guides. So again, one would have made a recommendation about which of these licenses to go for at renewal of these licenses. You have to go for the new Dynamics 365 licenses, and again, it's what are you exactly needing to do, Mr. User, to make the right recommendation. But that's the approximate mapping on there. However, there's good news. Got transition pricing. Now the word transition is being used here when a customer goes from their CRM online licenses to the new Dynamics 365 licenses. And essentially, if you have existing CRM customers, CRM online customers at the 31st of October, then they will be eligible for transition pricing to Dynamics 365 at renewal. Now, this is different for the different programs. So within CSP and other programs, you've got a 12-month subscription. Within enterprise agreements, it could be up to 3 years. But at the time where your commitment comes to an end, you can't renew the existing licenses. Typically, you go into the Dynamics 365 licenses, and there will be special pricing available. So May's saying, so will the tier pricing be applied if they subscribe for 3 months through CSP? Yes, with CSP, it's on a month-by-month basis. So the tier pricing is not so much about commitment of duration, so much as commitment to seats. So a good question there. The transition pricing, the pricing is more expensive going to Dynamics 365, so there are some really good discounts available. Now, these discounts are available in all of the programs, so I think the EA has been the king of the agreements for a very long time, but now CSP, these discounts absolutely available. To use the right SKUs, look for qualified offers. Now, a qualified offer applies to a customer who was an existing customer at this date here. So those of you who are CSP partners, can you see here, this looks like, oh yes, look, there's the Enterprise Edition Plan 1, and then this is the qualified offer for somebody who was a CRM Online Basic customer at that date there, and they will get a good price. So, for instance, Plan 1 usual price, the transition price could be as cheap as $57. So a couple of other questions. Yep, you can invoice, so if you're, selling under CSP, you can invoice when you like. I have an existing customer, will expire by end of March now. He's paying 65 per user per month. So, yes, so there's a question from Mohammed about pricing. So there's whole tables of if you've got this, then this is your price. So I've just chosen, an example on here. But essentially, what you've got is you've got different offers for different starting points. So this is if I start at CRM Online Basic and I want to go to Plan 1, there'll be another offer if you're starting with a different flavour of CRM Online. So George is saying, will the $57 be year on year or just once? So at the moment, it is for the next period, so the next subscription. So in CSP, that would be a year. We'll see what happens for that. So that's a question being asked a couple of times. Mohammed is saying, will he get the social engagement and the portal with the transitioned Dynamics 365? It depends what you're going from and to. Look at the licensing guide for the details on here. Parry saying the pricing for both on-premises and cloud. Just doing cloudy stuff at the moment, but yes, in answer to your question, when I want to transition, then I do have special pricing for on-premises customers as well. Now, more on the numbers. I want to show you this. Transition pricing versus tiered pricing. Are you ready? We're going to take the example here, the Cobalt Bolt company want to transition from CRM Online Professional to Plan 1. So let's be really clear. They've come to the end of their subscription for CRM Online Professional. They want to renew and they want to go to Plan 1. They're eligible for transition pricing of $86. Okay. Let's have a reminder of the tiered pricing for Plan 1. So if they were a brand new customer, then they would be paying $115 under Tier 1 for Plan 1. Because they are a loyal and renewing customer, then they're going to get transition pricing of $86. But there's no tiering on transition pricing. So if I was to say to you, okay, look at this table, when is it better to use the transition pricing? When is it better to use tiered pricing? We can see that it's at this point here, isn't it? So for less than 250 users, they should use the transition pricing because clearly that's less than these two prices. But for more than that, they should use tiered pricing. So just bear that in mind, that the transition pricing is one price, and there will be a break-even point where it's better to go one way than the other. I've just done a check here. So if I've got 233 users and I use 86 as the transition pricing, that's how much I would pay. if I go for 250, it's actually going to be less. So there are some interesting break-even points to be had on here. So if the transition cost for online always starts from November 1st until renewal only. So you have to, so this transition pricing is all about, were you a loyal customer on the 31st of October? That's the first thing. So the pricing was available from the 1st of November. However, it will be available for, well, for the maximum of a year, wouldn't it? So if you bought your CRM online licenses, late in October, you're not going to be renewing until a year later, then that transition pricing will still be available. So you have to have been a customer at this point. So I bought CRM online because Dynamics 365 wasn't available. When I renew, I've got to use Dynamics 365 pricing, and I'll always be eligible for the transition pricing. And does the transition cost for online? Yeah, so I think I've answered that, but let me know if you need more information on that. So that slide again, there are some numbers. Now, some of you may know my first job was a maths teacher, so I do like teaching people about numbers. However, I do appreciate, I think there are some of you very quick on the numbers, others that will be a useful reference. And what I'm saying is, consider these two things. Tiered pricing brings up some interesting things for your customers. Now, let's move on. And have a look. So the transition prices, will they be forever? The transition prices at the moment, the plan of record at the moment, now those of you who have been around a little while know that plans of record are good. Plan of record for the next subscription period. So if under CSP, that would be for 12 months. Rahul, I'll let Paul answer, or Paul Yasmin answer your question there. Right, let's do something which is quite important and talk about Power Apps and Flow. Now, again, let me just put this back into perspective. Let's go back to the diagram that we've been using just so that we know exactly what we're talking about here. So on this diagram, we know that the sales and the field service and customer service and project service automation, they're all the old CRM online stuff. We know that operations is the old AX online stuff, but there's a new kid on the block, Power Apps. And I said to you, Power Apps is important because it's included here, and team members gives you basic access to Power Apps, but I haven't told you much about Power Apps or why it's important. And it is part of the Dynamics 365 story, so we do need to know a little bit more about it. Are you ready? Power Apps and Flow are best friends, and we'll come back to that. But let's have a look at the Dynamics 365 homepage. Now, this is the portal. Have a look. Some of you will have seen this, of course. This is the portal for a user who's got access to all of the apps. And let's think about even taking an individual app. There are a couple of key things that make the Dynamics products really nice and always have done. And it's a feature of CRM and ERP products, which is that you have data and you expect it to be shared across business processes. So as a simple example, when a customer makes an order, I would like to use the customer data to raise their invoice. I would like to use the order details to decrement my database. I expect that data to be shared across different parts of my business, and I expect it to flow through the business processes as well. And, those of us who've been in the ERP world for a while, that's part of it. And what we've got, we would expect with Dynamics 365 that the data and the processes flow across all of these different apps. So whether it's operations, which is the old AX, or it's these ones which are the new CRM online. And that's absolutely true. But have a look at this slide here. This is showing you the one Microsoft, if you like, and it's putting into perspective where Dynamics 365 sits in. So you can see here that we've got Dynamics 365. Here are the apps that we've been talking about. There's the Adobe Marketing Cloud. And what's nice is, as a business, if I'm sort of, just getting started with this, I can just subscribe to one app and then I could go up to a plan and get more apps. These work individually and they all work together. The data is shared, the processes are shared. And what we've now got with Dynamics 365 is that it shares data with Office 365, which is useful, and it shares processes, of course, so I can initiate certain tasks from within Outlook or what have you. But what's interesting is how much further it's spreading. Have a look on the right-hand side here. So Dynamics 365 also integrates with cloud services like Power BI and Cortana and Azure Internet of Things. Now, this is really interesting because essentially it's going to give you things like, so Cortana Intelligence can help make cross-sell recommendations for sales reps. So that's interesting. It's using predictive analytics to look at what's going on. But one of the ones I particularly like is you could be getting, so using Azure Internet of Things, you could be getting field data from IoT devices to predict when a machine needs maintenance, for example. So this is talking about having data that's shared, having processes that are shared, lovely, but also the wider part is, oh, let's look at that data, let's integrate it with business intelligence, with predictive analytics as well. But it's not just the Microsoft world, a little bit of Adobe world there, that we need to integrate with. We need to integrate with all sorts of things. And that's why we've now got a common application platform where we've got as part of that the Common Data Service. And the Common Data Service is all about saying, do you know what, it would be good, wouldn't it, if data from anywhere could be used across any apps that we want. Now, this is quite a big vision, and from an apps perspective, we need to know about Microsoft AppSource. And if I was to go to the Microsoft AppSource website, then this is what I would see. A whole host of apps, this is like an app store almost, a whole host of apps that are going to work on this platform, and thus with my Dynamics 365 products, and you can see I've just put in a couple of other apps there, but this is what your dashboard might look like as a customer. Oh yes, I've got the Dynamics 365 apps in there, and I've also got some third-party apps, these are all Microsoft ones, that I got from AppSource. So you can see here that there's always a link to AppSource from the Dynamics 365 portal, and one of you was asking about, can I use a different marketing app? My recommendation would be make sure that it's in AppSource because it will have been certified to work with Dynamics 365. That's your best bet on there. So fine, let's just recap what I've said there. I've said, look, we've got apps from Dynamics 365, they share data, the data can be analysed, we can have third-party apps. I still haven't told you what Power Apps is. Power Apps is all about creating your own additional apps, and this is a sort of standard slide here. It's a service for creating and using custom business apps across platforms. And one of the important things is with Power Apps is that the data that you can connect to. So you could connect to the Common Data Service, which is where you gather in data from across your applications, or to an existing system or data source. Power Apps is aimed at the power user to create apps, hence its name, and the idea is that you can create an app with workflow. Now guess what's driving the workflow? Could it be something called Flow? Indeed it is, without writing code. And having done that, you can publish your apps for the web, for the mobile. So again, if I had written or I'd created my own app, it would show up in here. And I'd signed up for Power Apps just to see what would happen. You can see this is part of the email that I got. Welcome to Power Apps, build custom apps without writing code. And these are the first things it says. Oh, you can create an app using your own data. That's your cloud data, your on-premises data. Brilliant. One of the Power Apps tutorials, a very powerful one, showing you how to turn a SharePoint list into an app worth a watch. Or you can use the Common Data Service to build a database of all your data that then can be used across all of your apps. So what I want to say here is that Power Apps is important because it's part of the overall vision, and if we think that I need to be able to share data and I need to be able to have workflow business processes, Power Apps is a really quick and easy way for organisations to do that themselves. However, the app source is where you'd go for apps that are, if you like, certified to work with Dynamics 365. So Power Apps and Flow, the reason, as I say, for telling you that is you do get, oh, I've got all the builds on here, you do get Power Apps as part of Plan 1 and Plan 2, and that does mean that organisations can build their own apps very easily because they've got that functionality built in. So, Mohammed, some very good questions from you today. Apps created with Power Apps are available for internal and external or just internal users? Very, very good question. Can you see here I've put limited create and run rights for Power Apps and Flow. There are restrictions as to how you're licensed, as to what you're allowed to access, and it could be where the data's stored. It could be how sophisticated the app is. So I can't answer that because it's dependent on how you're licensed. If everybody was licensed with the Power Apps full app, then you've got no restrictions. However, there are restrictions. If I've got the sales app, I have basic Power Apps, right? I can generally run a Power App that somebody else has created. As soon as I get into external users, then there are going to be other licensing considerations. So we could run a whole course on Power Apps licensing. In fact, if you check out the Licensing School blog, there is a post on Power Apps and Flow licensing. So that might be interesting. Okay, just as we so question, can a customer have only Power Apps working with Office 365 and Power BI? A good question, actually. When you buy, so I've got the Dynamics apps here. This could equally be the Office 365 plans, and the Office 365 plans include, again, basic Power Apps functionality. So I could have one user licensed with the proper whole Power Apps thing, again, and then my users could either be licensed with the Dynamics 365 apps or the Office 365 apps, and they could run those. Absolutely. Okay, I see more conversations are happening. I want to move on to on-prem stuff, so just making sure you understand this. And let's just have a look at what we have today or yesterday. Dynamics AX server. So this is the on-premises deployment where you buy a server license. Can you see from my server here? There are a range of CALs, client access licenses, which allow you to access the services of the server. That doesn't change. Okay, so that's important to know that if you have any customers who have an on-premises deployment of AX, nothing has changed about that. Okay, what has changed is CRM server. Now this is the old CRM server, so this is before the December launch. Again, a server CAL model. Here's my server where I've got Dynamics CRM server running. It's licensed with a server license. Then, depending what people need to do, they license with a particular client access license, and I could have user ones and I could have device ones. And this is what's changed. So your on-premises customers, I used to have CRM Server 2016. I want you to watch the middle of the screen very carefully. Okay. I used to have CRM Server 2016. In the Dynamics 365 world, there's a couple of changes. One is the name. Dynamics 365 on premises equals CRM server. Okay, so AX is still separate. Dynamics 365 on premises, think of as CRM server. I still have CALs. But what vanished from this screen? Now, I don't know if anyone actually saw what vanished as I went between the screens there, but what vanished was the server license. Now, very good. Some of you have got that. What happens now if I'm a brand new customer and I want to license Dynamics 365 on premises? It's still called a server CAL licensing model, but these CALs here, any of them, include the rights to install the server products. Okay, that is quite important. So as a customer, if I have bought, it's a brand new customer, if I've bought these CALs, then I am allowed to install the server products, and I'm allowed to install as many of those as I want to on any servers at all. Now let's just go to something that's important for you to know about, which is dual access rights. Have a look here. Here is my diagram. I think it's fair to say that here's an on-premises server and here's the Microsoft hosted server. And let's have a look at the rights that you get. So this lady over here is licensed with a CAL. So she's an on-premises person, and I think we would all expect her. That CAL allows her to access this on-premises deployment. There's no server license here because that's now included in the CAL. This lady is licensed with a user subscription license. She is accessing the hosted servers, and we would expect that. But what's important for you to know is that there is on-premises use rights for these user subscription licenses, and that means that this lady, we bought her a Dynamics 365, I don't know, team members license, let's say. She can access Dynamics 365 team members stuff up on this hosted services. That's what we would expect. However, she can also access the on-premises team members stuff. Now that is not itself unexpected. With the user subscription licenses, if you've got any experience of this, then you probably are aware that there are these dual access rights, so that's fine. But what is also true, you know, this CAL allows me to install the server, so does this USL. So this is quite almost bizarre, isn't it? I buy a license to access CRM or Dynamics 365 in the cloud, but if I want to, I can also install it on premise and access it as well. And if you think about this, this gives your customers, you know, the ultimate flexibility, if you like, that they can maintain an on-premises deployment. You probably aren't going to get that many customers saying, oh yes, I bought cloud licenses, why don't we go on premises? But absolutely they could do. But it does mean if you've got customers who, you know, they've still got some on-premises stuff that they need to have going on, then they can go to the cloud knowing they can still get at it and even extend the deployment because they've got the rights to install the server licenses. Does that mean a separate databases? Yeah, the actual technical deployment, I'm making it sound like it's blissfully easy from a licensing perspective. Yeah, there are some things to be aware of on there. So yes, good question. So for existing customers who already have CRM 2016 and AX, how can they upgrade for Dynamics 365 on premises? Let's take a look, as if by magic. So what happens is if I'm already licensed for CRM server, then then I'm going to have within that some, I'm going to have software assurance. And when I renew the software assurance, I'm going to want to go to the 365 on-premises licenses. And there is a table, a very useful table in the product terms, if you're familiar with the product terms, but it's a document, and this is from December, so you need to specifically go to the December document that says, if you have these licenses, so these are all the old ones, so there could be a 2016 written in there, then you go to these licenses here. And what it means is that if you had a CRM Professional CAL with software assurance, you get a license for the sales on-premises CAL and the customer service on-premises CAL. Now, you don't have to renew the software assurance on both of those. You can just renew the software assurance on one, but you get given the licenses for all of these. With these two, you get given the licenses for team members, and then you choose to renew the software assurance. So just being really clear, there is no CRM server license now. Thank you for answering that question. Any minimum number of users, no minimum number of users for CRM CRM on premises. So let's just go back to the slide of what's available for CRM server. Oh, I keep going back to this slide. When you go to Dynamics 365 on premises, so Dynamics 365 on premises, think about this is the CRM deployment on premises. And can you see here, these are words that we've started becoming familiar with: team members, sales, customer service. But can you see what's also missing on there? There's no project service automation. There's no field service. Your Dynamics 365 on premises deployment is a more limited set of functionality than the cloud. So bear in mind that if you've got customers, I mean, these days that's generally the case, that if you've got an on-premises deployment, then you have got less functionality than the cloud deployment, but you can see that that's the only choice that you get. But team members is still the idea. I can get to basic functionality of these two. These CALs would be for individuals who were experts in sales or experts in customer service. But can you see there's no plan? There's no way of me buying both of these CALs at a special price like there is for the online licenses. So some restrictions in the licensing as well on there. So can we have different databases for on-premises and online? Yeah, technically you can. Yes, you can. Ugh. Yeah, you'd need to do some working out of that. Is it possible to upgrade Dynamics AX 2012 R2 to Dynamics 365? So yeah, there are transitions all over the place. I'll see if I've got a slide on that. Right, case management. I haven't got any slides on case management. There is a whole licensing guide on case management if that's your thing, Chris. So worth looking at that. I'm aware we're coming to the end of the time. We were advertised until 1:30, so I'm just looking at things I definitely want to tell you. And I'm just going to do some slides on availability, and then those of you who can stay on, let's see what questions you've got. But just so that if you have other things to do on the half hour, we've done all the slides that you need to see. Availability. Can you see here I've done a summary for you? So I've said, okay, online and on premises. So we've got the older AX products, AX 2009, that's just going to be sold through the Dynamics price list. The AX 2012 R3 will continue to be available through the Enterprise Agreement and the Dynamics price list. CRM Server 2016, only if you're an existing customer, and this is the new thing, and you can see it's available through the EA and the MPSA and Open, but it just replaces the CRM server. What's possibly more interesting is when we get into CSP over here. Look at the things we talked about. Team members, that long orange online service USL, the Plan 1 apps, remember that was the CRM ones, the Plan 1, operations or Plan 2, and you can see what's available where. So again, nothing here available through the Open program, everything available through CSP, everything available through the EA, and some things MOSP is buying direct from the web. So that's just making sure that you know about that. So there will be some more questions, I'm sure. We'll carry on, but if you need to go, then I am aware it's coming up to the half hour, so feel free to return to your real life. But equally, if you've got questions, let's give ourselves an extra few minutes just to answer those questions. So I have many slides, as you probably can imagine. So for new users, can they still get a CRM 2016 license, or must they move to Dynamics 365? That's a really good question. So the licenses have been removed. You can't buy more licenses unless you are under an enterprise agreement. So over here you can see, oh, CRM server isn't available under an EA anymore, but for an existing customer you can continue to buy it. Remember, for the actual server license, you don't need to buy the server licenses anymore. If you were to buy just one Dynamics 365 on-premises CAL, you'd be allowed to install the server product. So that would be the way to do that. What's the difference between a cloud add-on and From SA for AX Dynamics. So let's have a look. I've got a slide just on the differences in some of the licenses on here. So this is just being aware. One thing to be aware with Dynamics 365 as a an on-premises product versus an online product, be aware the on-premises product has less functionality. So it is a restricted feature set. We haven't got plans or tiered pricing. This is a useful link if you want to know exactly what the difference is between them. That's useful on there. And because of this, it could be that customers want to move from the Dynamics 365 on-premises world to the online world. And there are two ways of doing this. You can, in fact, let me show you the next diagram. Can you see here? I'm an existing software assurance customer and I want to get to the cloud. Then what you can do is you can buy an add-on, and what that means is that you keep paying your software assurance, but you also pay for an add-on. Or you keep your software assurance and you think, actually, I want to move completely to the cloud. You stop paying for that and you go completely to this From SA user subscription license. And From SA is only available for customers who have come from software assurance, and they've got to own their licenses. They've got to have paid for them for 3 years before they're allowed to do that. And if we think about the Dynamics 365 on-premises customer who's going to the cloud, then the height of these bars indicates that it's cheaper for them than a brand new customer who goes to the online solution. So this gap here is 15%. However, we talked about discounts available for customers who were transitioning from the old CRM Online to Dynamics Online. It's the same for the on-premises customer who transitions. If they've got software assurance today and they think, oh yes, I want to go to the cloud, then they can buy these add-ons, or they can go to the From SA and they're going to get about a 40% discount on that. So the word transition is all about, I'm an existing customer at the 31st of October and I want to go to something else. Remember that there's big discounts available for those customers. So good question from Mohammed. Is Operation Plan 2 existing for Dynamics 365 on premises? I don't have any plans on premises. So on this slide, this is one of the things I don't get any plans, and at the moment I don't even have operations because I still have AX 2012 R3, so I don't have the exact equivalent to the AX Online functionality. I've still got the old AX 2012 R3. So questions, and Paul's just helping me with questions on here. Can we give access to users on Org-Y Office 365 to Power App X? Potentially. It's going to be to do with what data is used, how you're licensed for Office 365 or Power Apps. So technically you're going to be able to do that, yes. How are you going to do it from a licensing perspective? It depends exactly what is going on there. Brilliant, thanks Austin. Okay, I think I've answered questions that you've got, but do farewell if you need to go. Do let me know if you've still got outstanding questions. I'm just going to do a bit of a summary, which I'd make sure that you are okay. So remember these licensing guides. And can you see here, they probably make more sense now. So what we did, the Enterprise Edition of Dynamics 365 is the online stuff, but there is a licensing guide for the on-premises equivalent as well. And there is a guide that helps you completely with transitions. So here, if you want to know, you've got existing customers, what do I sell them, what do I tell them, it's all in there. But also they have updated the CRM Online licensing guide, because obviously that flows into some of these. You can see these are all December 2016 guides, so useful to know about. So a couple of comments. Right, so AX7. AX7 is really the name for AX Online. Well, AX Online is the way of saying AX7. AX7 is now operations. So good clarification there. Yeah, some people say need a detailed session on things. It's amazing the amount of information there is to know, isn't it? We've had an hour and a half together, and there's still more we can cover. So, sorry, I thought I had answered this question about the Power Apps one. It depends on where the data is stored, and it depends on what the app is doing, and it depends how people are licensed for both Office 365 and Power Apps. So, potentially yes, but they do need to do the licensing. So, what about licensing for Business Edition? I haven't covered the Business Edition in this section, in this session. There is a licensing guide for the Business Edition, so that would be a good port of call to do some reading on that. And Paul's answering the other ones. So the finance stuff is going to be the Business Edition finance module. So again, I haven't covered that in this session. And social learning. Oh, here's a good question. Can the Power App create a powerful mobile app, or should I go to custom development? Do you know, I know where you're coming from on that, because sometimes you think, oh, you can do a great demo, but is it really going to be any use? I would say you can actually let Power Apps do its stuff, and then you can put code, I say, on top of it. You know, you can also code as well. So I would watch. There's some really good tutorial stuff on Power Apps. There's some good demos, and there's something that says, why don't you start with a template and then customize it yourself? So that's a good idea. I would say if you are a coder, I probably wouldn't use Power Apps. However, if I want to do something very quickly, and it's just, you know, a simple app to give me a something to do with a SharePoint list, Power Apps is going to be much quicker than starting from yourself. So good question. Oh, any specific licensing for developers? No. Well, yes. So if you have to be licensed for the full Power Apps module to do dev with Power Apps, and you get that either with that, it's $40 for a standalone plan, or it's in plan 1 or plan 2. So that would be the sort of the specific licensing there. Financials. Can I get core financials from GL, etc. in plan 1? No. Financials is all going to be about the business edition of Dynamics 365, and what we've looked at here is the enterprise edition. So good question. Okay, I'm going to issue a 24-second warning. Okay, now the 24-second warning is, do you have any final questions you would like to ask? I know what it's like. You're on a call, you can still hear questions coming in, you want to hear the answers, but really you need to return to real life. So let's give ourselves a hard cut-off point, which is probably about 18 seconds now. Think of your final questions. Otherwise, we will say farewell. Or it's like abbreviated questions here. Non-production environment licenses for on-premises. That non-production. Oh, don't know. I'm going to sort of think. I would need to think about that. Non-production environment license for on-premises. There are licenses included. Yeah, I need to think about that. Storage limitations, 5,000 gigabytes gone up maximum storage online. That's in the presentation. I didn't show the slides. Transition pricing is the same for all previous plans. No, it depends where you're coming from and where you're going to. So there are big tables of pricing, which I didn't include in here, but it sounds like that's interesting. When will step-up SKU details be available? Now, I'm told that they will be available from February, which is obviously not very far away. There wasn't any urgency put on those because it's so early. It's almost like, you probably don't want to step up yet. It might be in a few months' time you want to step up, but I like to see these things so I know what's on the price list. But yes, we're told February for that. Testing environment will be free. There are a certain yes, as you are used to on that. We have layers in Dynamics 365. I need some more information on that question. So where can we get the licenses for plans and apps on-premise CRM? So there are no plans with on-premises. We just have, in effect, two apps, the sales and the customer service. So at the moment, if your customer's saying, oh, I need a plan, you could sell them a Dynamics 365 online plan 1, and remember they could get to the on-premises functionality if they wanted to. So that's the best answer there. New customization, in terms of what's new in customization, the licensing guides will give you some idea on that, and yes, you can do new customization. What about backups? What's the policy for customers to get backups? If you are a deployment partner, then you're probably going to make some recommendations yourself on that. If it's going to be running more instances of the on-premises on the server software, you're going to need to license that, but the licenses are now included. So the supporting infrastructure you'd need to pay extra for. You get obviously redundancy in the cloud. Oh, good question. What about the connector for Dynamics NAV and other ERP? Yeah, don't think I've seen anything on that. There might be, yeah, don't know. Do we have finance modules included in Plan 2 as part of AX? So it depends. If we're talking financials, that's business. If we're talking the existing finance stuff we're used to as part of AX, then that is in operations and Plan 2. So, yeah. A pleasure. Thank you to all of you saying thank you. Okay, my 24 seconds warning gave us a flurry of questions, didn't it? Shall I try another 12-second warning now for questions? How much customization is possible for on-premises? Very good.